Hey everyone, the brand new survival game Atomfall is out now, and here to tell us about it is Ben Fisher, head of design at Rebellion, and Rebellion's CEO and modern day knight. He actually just came in riding fresh off his horse, Jason Kingsley. Hey everybody.
Hello.
How you doing?
We're also joined by my glorious co-host Brian Altano. We've been digging into Atomfall for the last little bit and having a good time trying to escape from the zone. And it's been fun, a little harrowing, a little crazy. I finally got some better weapons, got my weapons upgraded, so now I'm chunking out some robots. But yeah, we'll dive into all that stuff in a bit. But Atomfall is finally here. Can you guys give us give our audience a quick rundown of the game?
Well, do you want to do that, Ben?
Yep, sure. So, I've got a twitchy connection. I think it's better now. Yeah, so Atomfall is a survival action game set in 1960s England in a quarantine zone in the north of England, as I say. The player wakes up in this zone. They don't know who they are. They don't know how they fit into this space, and a lot of the mystery and excitement of the game is uncovering how you relate to the game world. We give you a sense of freedom and exploration. It's up to the player which way they investigate through the story and how they interpret it.
Yeah, great. It's definitely one of those games where they just kind of drop you in and say, "Hey, go." just go. You can't stay here. You gotta go. So, I remember walking out and just wandering. And I'm like, all right, well, I was told to go find something, so I guess I'll go and look for that. So I've been having a good time just kind of wandering about. Mm-hmm. I think I've seen 3 different zones so far. But just being a few hours in, the graphics are gorgeous. Tell us a little bit about the visuals, art direction, and kind of how that all came together, because this is a very different kind of survival, almost semi-post-apocalyptic kind of world.
Yeah, it sort of all sprung from 2 key moments. One was the Windscale disaster, which historically was one of the first nuclear disasters that happened. A lot of people don't know about it, but predates 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl by a long way. So I always thought that would be a really interesting place to sort of as a springboard for a science fiction apocalypse-y kind of game. And then once I was walking in the Lake District, I can't remember exactly where, and bizarrely for a modern day audience, there are phone boxes in weird places in England. These are sort of left over from the times before mobile phones were a thing. And I was walking past and thinking, that's a really odd thing to see a phone box in the middle of nowhere. And then it started to ring. And I sort of kept walking, and then I stopped and I thought, should I answer it or not? I mean, what is one supposed to do? Is it, I don't know. And then I half went towards it and then thought, well, what's the point? Nobody knows I'm here. And then I thought, yeah, but what if it's somebody who needs help? And then I sort of walked towards it and it just stopped. So to this day, I don't know who was ringing. It's probably a wrong number, but it sort of it made me feel very weird, and it made me feel a bit sort of folk horror movie, and sort of, and I just thought that was a brilliant sort of thing to put into a game one day. I mean, literally 10 years later, that's what we've done. But those are the sort of 2 things that kicked us off. And then my love of classic science fiction, like War of the Worlds, I suppose, but also the Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham and John Christopher's work, things like The Death of Grass, which are all sort of 50s and 60s era sci-fi, which was really the beginning of the golden age of science fiction, I think, certainly in England. But it's sort of a cozy apocalypse, if you can even call an apocalypse that.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and there's this like really incredible sense of discovery and danger, and I think that's one of my favorite things about this game is I love playing a game where I can just start walking in a direction and be like, am I supposed to be here yet? I don't even know what level I am or what that thing is. Oops, it killed me. And that's really fun. It's also really challenging. Tell us a little bit about sort of finding that balance of discovery and difficulty.
That was a feature that came quite late in production, actually. We had a version of the game that was a little more choreographed, more of a kind of guided story. But one of the creative principles that we build from at Rebellion is that sense of sandbox freedom. You've got an objective, and then you've got freedom in how to achieve it. So we took a chance and kind of unlocked all the doors, let the player go wherever they see fit, and flipped the way that we were telling this story. We don't have a quest system, we've got leads, so you're piecing together an understanding of the world and doing some interpretation. One of the things that we had to build into that process was making sure that any piece of narrative, any piece of world building somehow connects to the larger mystery. So no matter where you engage with the game world, you're gradually drawn into this larger understanding of what's going on. So that was quite experimental and took quite a lot of work to find a model where the player's not learning too much, they're not uncovering too many fragmented leads, so they don't understand how everything fits together. And it also influenced our world building and writing style to make everything a bit tense, a bit morally ambiguous, to leave room for player interpretation, to leave room for the player to choose whether to engage or not, who they think is good guys and bad guys, that sort of thing.
One of the great things, I suppose, about being an independent company, because Rebellion is privately owned, my brother and I own it, and we've got 500 highly qualified and skilled games developers that work with us. And one of the things we can do is we can give the games design a bit of space. We're well known for the Sniper Elite series, well known for Zombie Army and Evil Genius and all of these games. And we've done sequels of those, and they've been very, very successful. But we also want to make sure we keep a level of original innovation inside what we do. So try and keep a balance between sequels and innovating new things. And I'm very proud of what the teams actually managed to achieve. It wasn't easy. There were a lot of challenges and quite a few wrong turns down the road. But we've got there. And so far, it seems like everybody's really enjoying playing the game, which is ultimately what really matters. What do people think of the games we make?
Yeah, the dialogue, talking about the dialogue stuff, it kind of, and like finding these leads, I really like this system because it's very different and kind of gives you like more freedom as I'm like, okay, I've got like 2 or 3 leads in this area, so now I can explore this area and look for those, and then I find more leads, and some of them are here, some of them are over there. I'm like, okay, I'll wait to follow those. It's almost kind of like a whirlpool, kind of like, it's how I visualize it, to where like no matter kind of where you're moving in this whirlpool, it's always pulling you towards the center, which is, it's really cool. So I've been really enjoying that.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's the ultimate award we could ever win as a games developer, is people thinking our games are good, and it's sort of deliberate. It's almost quite a sophisticated structure for a game. You're not just following the breadcrumbs that the designers have placed. You're not sort of in a track, and some games do that very, very successfully. But you're just following along with what the designer wanted you to see. So it's almost the opposite of a movie. If you think about it, a movie, you're watching superb performances, but it's linear. It's what the director wants you to see, and it's the performance the actors are giving. In this, you're sort of wandering around this wild place and slowly uncovering layers that suddenly knit together, and you go, oh, I see, that's what's going on there, where 2 ideas might have kind of seem separate to begin with, then they come together. So yeah, it seems to be quite compelling. People are enjoying uncovering the mystery.
It's had an influence on how we do conversation characters as well. So that's part of the wider leads system, is you can fail a conversation. It's not got that traditional RPG thing where you kind of work your way down the list and learn everything you can from a character. The conversations have a much more natural, organic flow to them. The person you're talking to wants something from the conversation just as much as you do. So if you say the wrong thing, you might close a lead, you might open a lead based on your interpretation of the character, what you think is the right or wrong thing to say. So it means that you're also you're not just finding a load of leads that were already placed, but you're engaged in the process of making them happen.
I really love that element. So, yeah.
Just one little extra thing as well, Ben, because I think we underplay this. At the beginning of each sentence that is an option, you get a description of the style of communication. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be angry or aggressive, it labels, this is the thing to say if you want to be angry. This is the thing to say if you're curious. This is the thing to say if you're passive, and then you can say the words, because we've all played those games where you say something and you thought you were being polite. It turns out you're being really rude, and then the game goes in a different direction than you expected. So I wanted to make sure that people understood what sort of emotional state they were kind of saying when they said that to an NPC. And I think that's actually quite important too. And a few people have said to me they really like that because they want to do an aggressive playthrough and be really bolshy with everybody and see what happens. Or they want to be very calm and, passive and just, find what the story is. So yeah, I think that's been quite a bit of innovation there.
I found myself doing that. Like I would be vulnerable and honest with a character who I was like, I kind of trust this person, but if somebody like rubbed me the wrong way out the gate, I was just such an asshole to them, and I felt kind of guilty about it. But I'm also like, it's giving me the option, so I might as well. I'm like, hey, back off, dude! Stop asking so many questions. It's It's fun.
I was on the other end of that where I was asking too many questions, and people were like, "Yeah, I don't know if I should trust you." Yeah, I've also made a couple mistakes in a couple conversations, and it led to somebody semi-important dying in my game already. So I'm like, oh well, that ending is completely shot because I looked at the trophies because I'm playing on PlayStation. I was like, well, that ending is gone. Oh well, I guess I'll have to play through it again to see what more of his story. So it's. I actually like that I'm getting those kind of payoffs a little bit sooner because I feel like in a lot of these like bigger open world kind of RPGs, kind of like choose your own story kind of things, sometimes you don't really get payoffs until the very end and it's kind of just plays out. And I feel like with Atomfall, so far from what I've seen, you're getting that kind of payoffs a little bit sooner on some of these things. People join you a little bit sooner, or they move to a different location sooner, or they die. And you're just like, well, I guess I'll just loot their body because that's all that's left to do with them.
We really had to resist the urge to take that traditional, linear game with 3 options at the end kind of structure, because you just save the game before the branching ending and then play all 3 and go, well, done. We really wanted you to feel involved in the process of constructing the story as you played. So there are events that you can trigger that have an influence on the world that some players might not see at all. Don't want to spoil, but there's some that can like change. Like you say, you can kill named characters, and then you just have to deal with that. There's no character with plot armor. You can kill everyone or kill no one, and play through the game.
That's good to know.
I'm very excited for my next run of just murdering the entire world and then escaping by myself.
Speaking of stuff to kill, so there's like big ass robots, there's mutated creatures, there's cultist people, maybe friendly people that you shouldn't have killed. What are some of both of your favorite things to kill in this game? Because there's just so much, and I love it.
I was very keen on the dangerous creatures in particular. So the leeches and the rats, they're our sort of poisonous homage to the Triffids, for example. That's for me, because that comes from my childhood and watching a BBC show called Day of the Triffids, which lingered with me, and I'm really pleased to see those in there. I was also very keen on using cultural references like Morris dancers, for example, or cricket bats, that kind of thing. And the whole game is absolutely filled with cultural references and touch points and quite a lot of Easter eggs, Ben. I don't know whether you've seen people trying to uncover all of our cultural Easter eggs that we got in the game. It's absolutely packed with them, and people have found a few of them, but not all by a long way.
I'm so happy that people get them as well, because they're references of a certain vintage on purpose. We wanted it to have that old-fashioned vibe to the game, so it's nice to see people getting the joke. So when it comes to things to kill, I like killing named characters because it's a rare treat. The game coping fine with it, and it causing different stories as well. It's nice to have that kind of cascade of chaos and then just deal with it.
I know who to blame now when when the birds killed me, because I've been killed by birds because I was like in my inventory and not paying attention, and then just a flock of birds attacked me, and I was like, oh, I don't have any healing items on me right now. I was on my way to replenish.
The idea of not pausing the game was a very deliberate choice, actually, by the team. Mm-hmm. We had debates about it, because obviously there's a pros and cons about pausing the game while you look at your inventory. But in for immersion's sake, I think we came down on the side that if you're going to look through your inventory, you go somewhere safe. And that's what you do in real life. You don't just stop in the middle of a battle and look through your backpack because you get killed. So I think it works quite nicely.
Birds in real life can and will kill you at any time. It doesn't matter what. If you're looking at your phone or a map or your backpack, they'll get you. So it's good life advice.
Yeah.
A lot of the subtle choices in the game are there to feed the lead system. So find is that it's so easy to follow quest markers and just that groove of looking at the compass at the top of the screen. We wanted you to stay engaged and observant, to choose what to do, to plan carefully. So a lot of the choices in the game were based around keeping you a little bit on edge. So you're always being observant, so you're always being cautious. That opens you up to searching for leads and searching for understanding.
That's actually been quite a big part of the theme of the game, is the sort of folk horror, the familiar yet unfamiliar, this juxtaposition of I don't know how many of you have gone into a rural pub, for example, in the UK, and you go in there, and I have genuinely, the pub goes silent as you walk in because you're strangers, and then obviously usually in ordinary life it kicks off again. Mm-hmm. But literally all of the locals stop talking and look at you.
You get that record scratch moment. No,
exactly.
There's obviously I'm a huge fan of sort of vintage folk horror, and there's a lot of elements of like a lot of the ones I grew up watching in here. Specifically, obviously, Wicker Man is one of them. But in terms of those sort of inspirational pulls, what other kind of stuff did you guys chuck in there? Because I really love that type of horror specifically.
Well, I suppose there are psychological horrors. So, for example, The Prisoner was a TV show in the 60s, which...
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
It's sort of horror in a way. It's about a person trapped in a landscape that's very surreal. I don't know whether you'd really call it horror. It's sort of on the edge of horror. But that was kind of influential to us as well. The Wicker Man, obviously. I'm trying to think of other... what other movies did we... There's more TV shows.
A lot of TV shows, like the Quatermass Experiment being a huge one, and like early Doctor Who, all the sort of literature that Jason mentioned earlier. Broadly speaking, we also looked at the themes of folk horror, the themes of Cold War fiction, and the sort of issues that they tackle. And there's a sort of overlap between those two themes, this idea of cultural groups clashing in a sort of tense way that won't resolve itself. Folk horror obviously being about tradition versus modernity, urban versus rural, pagan versus organized religion, and those sorts of tensions. And, Cold War is a similar sort of tension, meets West, sort of philosophically, versus us, I guess. And like how these different organizations change the way that people express themselves as part of a larger social group. So we looked for these resonances, we looked for these balances between different styles of storytelling, and then cast them in the style of 50s, 60s British sci-fi and speculative fiction.
Awesome.
That's very cool. One thing I also I found was really cool that you don't get to see a lot in video games is a metal detector. It's a very weird thing to really enjoy, but I'm really enjoying just walking around with my metal detector looking for lunchboxes and other caches, and it's just kind of interesting. What kind of drove you guys to kind of include those kind of a tool like that?
Oh, well, that comes from very early days. I just thought it was a really great idea. Can we get a metal detector in there? Because I felt it would slightly distract people in some ways. You explore the landscape, you forget that there are dangerous creatures out there, and because you're just metal detecting.
That's how I died to birds. Looking down, the birds got me from above.
Yeah, I don't know whether being a detectorist in real life is that dangerous. I suppose it depends where you're going, but it's a really simple and interesting gameplay mechanism to give rewards to the player as well, or to get the player to seek out rewards, especially in a game where you've got limited resources that you can scavenge. Suddenly you think, actually, I do need to use my metal detector in this area because I need bullets. I've got 2 bullets. I need at least 6. And we've done that very deliberately, again, because, of course, gun culture in the UK doesn't really exist in the same way as it does in the US. So for us, guns are now anyway fairly rare. Most people don't experience them at all in their lives, and we wanted to sort of have that flavour in the game as well. That guns are rare and powerful things, even if they're rusty.
Yeah, the weapons, so you've got handguns, rifles, there's SMGs, shotguns, lot of good options to choose from. But like you said, they start out kind of rusty until you get a little bit further in, and then you're able to kind of upgrade them using parts and such. And like, there's a lot of materials and crafting and such goes on. What kind of like drove you guys to that kind of system of like just kind of around for your weapons and your combat?
Do you want to take that, Ben?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. It was the same idea of making you engage with the environment, take your time and observe. So you've got to have something to go and search for, right? We also wanted you to be in a state of like resource deprivation. So you're choosing carefully whether to engage or not at all. You're choosing the right moment to have a fight. You're working with imperfect knowledge and you're doing the best you can in the situation you find yourself. So that principle, that tone, works through the entire narrative as well as sort of reflecting in the gameplay. We also found that, once you've got too much ammo, it's easy to slot into playing it like a sort of standard first-person shooter. And those are great, but that's not the tone that we were going for here. We wanted you to be on that back foot, of taking your time and being observant. And like Jason said, the tone of the environment itself, the fact that there aren't many guns around, but there are cricket bats, just seemed like a good natural fit.
Excellent. And so we're just about running out on time, but one thing I do want to give you guys a chance, is there something we didn't ask about that you guys want to talk about in Atomfall for our fans and your audience?
I think you've been fairly comprehensive. I mean, Ben and I could chatter about the game, where it comes from and influences for hours, almost certainly. As I say, I'm really interested in getting players' feedback. The comments section, unusually, I enjoy reading the comments section, in particular when people say nice things. But I think it's really important that we observe and listen to players' feedback, because at the end of the day, they're the people we're making the games for, and so I'm super keen on that. And if Atomfall is the success I think it could be, then hopefully we will do more with Atomfall, with the gameplay systems we've experimented with, and we'll do that. You didn't mention tea. You didn't mention orange pasties or anything like that. So that's important. Mustn't forget that.
There's lots of good food to eat. I've been munching on all sorts of meat tins and the pastries and cake and drinking tea anytime I find a teapot. I love that you can just pour the tea right there at the table and just take a sip. It's great. So. But Ben, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Atomfall is out right now on console and PC. So go kick some ass across the quarantine zone. We've got more beyond ahead, so don't go anywhere.